Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some products from Altenew. Going to be using quite a bit. We're going to be talking about combining stamps and stencils for pattern layering. We're also going to be talking about these new Trailblazing inks from Altenew. They sent me this set to kind of play around with. They're all very muted colors, and you may notice that they are a round shape, which is a little bit different for our industry. They are more of like a felt or a linen pad, and they don't just snap on, they actually screw on. And I heard in one of their promo videos that you could open it with one hand, and so I had to try that, and in fact, you can open it with one hand. They also have a little line on the side that you can line them up so that you don't have any issues getting the lid to screw on, but I really didn't have too many problems getting them lined up. So let's talk about the cards, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the inks and some other things too, because you know how we do here in these long videos. So I'm using the lightest color. This is just a wood grain background from their A Walk in the Woods stamp set. You could certainly use pattern paper. I don't have a lot of pattern paper, so because I like to make my own. That's what I buy my background stamps for. So here I am stamping this down using pink sand. I just stamped it once. And for these larger background stamps, this is the way that I prefer to stamp them, is using the sticky mat in my MISTI so that nothing is moving around. But if you do not have a MISTI, I'm going to show you how I did it before. So this is the pinstripe background. I'm also going to be using this with the lightest blue ink. And so I'm going to ink it up. I did notice that these ink pads are a bit juicier than their traditional ink pads. And the coverage was pretty good. Like this one I only got one shot at because I'm not using anything that I can stamp it multiple times. And I still got a very good impression on the first try. So here I'm inking this up, and then I'm going to put my paper face down, and I'm going to not move it around. You just want to go straight down. And then I'm going to use a scrap piece of paper. I'm going to hold it in place with one hand, and I'm going to push and just smooth over like good even pressure with the other. And then I will switch and do the other side. This is a great way to get a good impression with a large stamp like this if you don't have a stamp positioner. So here, I know it's hard to see because it's a light blue on white, but that pinstripe is there. And then I thought it would be really fun to combine this with the, I think it's the flower bed, blooming flower bed, I think, stencils. And this is going to give us kind of it's almost like making your own pattern paper, honestly. Like, it's going to give us two different looks with the different backgrounds that we have. But the patterns aren't going to be competing with each other. So because these florals will be larger in brighter colors, the wood grain and the pinstripe are kind of going to fall to the back, but they're still going to make the card more interesting. If you want to try something like this, I would recommend using just anything that would be a good natural or a good neutral background, like a wood grain, a simple stripe, a simple polka dot would work, like anything that you could just use as a neutral. That's the kind of patterns that you're looking for. Nothing too busy, too crazy. So with these inks, I will say they are a little bit different than their crisp inks. Apparently they said, like on their website, it says that they have a higher viscosity, which means they're supposed to be a little bit thicker. That doesn't mean anything to me, but I will tell you that I did feel like I got better coverage. So maybe there is something to that with them being a little bit thicker. The ink blended really well. I had no issues with the ink blending. It went on just like any other ink, like really smooth. And then here you can see with each one of these colors, I am just kind of mixing it up. So I stuck with kind of like having them catty corner. So the blue and then these, they're like pinkish, reddish browns. They're really pretty. This is not my normal color palette. But that doesn't mean that it's not, you know what I mean? Just because it's different doesn't mean that it's not pretty. We'll come back to the just because it's different doesn't mean it's not pretty thing. But anyway, so I'm doing each of them the same way just to show you the difference in how the background pattern can make a difference in the final card. For the first one, I started with Dusty Mauve, which is one of the midtones. For this one, I started with Pink Sand, just because my background was a little bit lighter. This is what I totally get for not taping down my paper and just taping down my stencil. It moved on me. It's probably going to do it again. I think it did it one other time. So don't do as I do as I say, and tape down your paper. I know with something like this, it can be a little bit more challenging to get it to stay where you want it when you have like an all over background like this one is. But in that case, just put the tape face up so that it sticks to the stencil when you put the stencil down. But yeah, so first things first, see, it did move again. I had to readjust it. It's fine. Everything's fine. I actually posted these cards as part of the Instagram hop for Altenew. And so if you're on Instagram, I will link it below, like direct link it, so that way you can just head straight there. They are doing some giveaways. They also, if you're like, oh my gosh, love these inks, gotta have them, they have bundles, and the bundles are like 5% off or 7% off. Versus buying them individually. Their price point is about $8 per ink pad. So just some information for you there. Like I said, you can head over to Instagram. I'm also doing a Pink Fresh blog hop today, and there's giveaways there as well. And so I will link that below. I'm trying to think what else. We're coming up on Black Friday sales. I will be updating my Crafty sales page, which just kind of keeps track of the different sales that are going on. Those are affiliate links, and an affiliate link is basically I earn a small commission off of your purchases. That doesn't cost you any extra. The company is the one that pays that. But that just helps support me, support my family, support this channel so that I can continue doing this. Back to the card. So here I've just masked off some of the areas so that I could do the centers one color and the berries another color. So I just used, this is Altenew's satin masking tape. And I have been using this quite a bit lately and have been enjoying it. I had a really hard time. I know it's funny because this tape is purple, but like the purple tape, I used that for a while, but sometimes that would tear my paper. And so I have had much better luck with this one. So this is the one I've been using. But anywho, so those craft sales, I will be updating that on my blog. I will link that below. And of course, you guys know that I appreciate you using those links. I know that sometimes it can be a little bit of a pain in the butt to kind of hunt them down. But I do appreciate when you take the time to use them. So there's that. Now let's talk about the same but different. So I posted, and maybe you guys can tell me, it might just be the content. And if it is, that's okay. Like, tell me, I'm a big girl, I can take it. So I posted 2 videos that did not perform as usual. The viewing was down quite a bit. And I was like, what is going on? Like, is it just not good content? Which could be the case. But so one of them was a card that I did that was a, what is the word I want? Collaboration with my friend Dawn. And it was a muted color palette, and that was a little bit different for me. And then there was another one that I did that was more of like a bold color palette that was talking about complementary colors. And like, I felt like they were both, even though the muted one wasn't necessarily my color palette, the card was definitely my style. And I was like, what is it? And so the only thing that I did differently was when I was photographing them, I used a dark wood background instead of my usual either white wood or marble. And I'm like, is it the thumbnail? Is that the problem? Is the problem the thumbnail? I need you to tell me. Is the problem the thumbnail? And you know what? I used the wood one for this thumbnail as well. So if it is, I guess you probably won't be watching this to tell me. But if you are, I would like you to tell me if it was the thumbnail because I want to know. Like, I get that I use the same background for like years and years, so it's probably weird if they're different, and like that totally makes sense to me. And I have no issue sticking to the white, but now that like the craft room has been cleaned out, I have access to the other ones, and so I was trying to like, you know, break out and use them. But if you can't identify it as a Kelly card without that white background, you let me know. I'll go back to the white. So here we're moving on to the greens. Really like these greens. I love a sagey green. In my old married house, my kitchen was sage green, and in my current house, this my dining room is this sagey green. It actually matches probably the eucalyptus color more, but super love that color. I think it's such a beautiful neutral. Like it just matches so many things. I have considered, I have not shared it with my husband, but I have considered, we have an accent wall in our family room that is brown, because we have like really pale, like Tiffany blue color walls in our kitchen, eat-in kitchen, and then that stretches into our family room because they're all connected. But I've thought about changing that accent wall to a navy, because I think it would be beautiful with the fireplace and the white woodwork. But I haven't shared that with my husband, you know, because sometimes you just want something different. So here at this point, this one is done. I was really happy with the way that it came out. I'm going to do the same thing for the pinstripe. And then we're going to get into doing the stamping. I wanted to try the inks as in many ways as I possibly could. This one is sped up quite a bit. I should have cleaned it. PPS. I should have cleaned it before I put it down on my card, but I didn't. And so again, we go back to, we return to the old adage, which is pretty much, you know, basically law here on my channel, is do as I say and not as I do. So, or do whatever you want to do. I mean, I'm winging it here. You could be winging it too. We're all just winging it in life. But I did speed this up because it was just the same process, but I wanted you to be able to see how it all came together. The leaves are the last stencil, and it really does bring everything together. And I think this particular stencil is super, super pretty. For the centers, I just actually flip-flopped them. So if it was a blue flower, I used the redwood, and if it was a pinkish flower, I used the navy, and that was just to like deepen up the centers. Really like the way both of these came out. And now I wanted to show you the cleaning of the stencil. So this is it wiped off with a baby wipe. I went in with some stamp cleaner. I just sprayed it one time and then went back in with a baby wipe. And you can see they totally did not stain my stencils when I added the cleaner. So cleaning it up with just a baby wipe, there was a little bit of residue left. And then I went back in with the stamp cleaner and it totally cleaned up everything. The other thing that I noticed with these is, and I'll definitely show you later on with a more solid stamp, they didn't stain my stamps. Now, I know that that is a problem for some people. For me, it is not a problem. It does not bother me because I know they stain because they're high quality photopolymer stamps. But there are some people who don't like that. So that's something maybe to keep in mind if you're a person that it bothers you when your stamps are stained. These didn't. Even when I used the navy, which I think is Indigo Skies, like I was pretty shocked that it didn't stain them. So here, this is the Tea Rose, Bellaroma hybrid Tea Rose, just because I wanted an added extra element. So I did stamp the, I stamped my two base colors twice. You don't necessarily have to do that, and I'll show you at the end. I didn't think it was worth showing you me stamping the rose 3 different times, even though I filmed it, because you never know what you're going to need. So I did show you one stamping and then double stamping. For the rest of my layers here, I'm not going to double stamp. I'm only going to do one single. So with the inks, stamping one time, if my stamp was seasoned, like I had used it before, it seemed to do okay. If the stamp had not been seasoned, meaning I had never used it before and it was still brand new straight out of the package, I did have a little bit of trouble getting coverage with just one stamping. So that's just me trying to be honest and transparent. I don't think that that's anything wrong with their inks. I think that I don't take the time to prep my stamps. What do I mean by prep my stamps? So there is like a layer that's kind of on top of there from the manufacturer. And so you can go in with just a plain white eraser to season them. Some people wash them to season them, you know, just like with Dawn dish soap, just wash them up and then let them air dry. There's a couple of different ways that you can do it. I don't do any of that. I just use it. So here, the one on the left was stamped once, the one in the middle was stamped twice, and then you saw me stamp this blue one. I liked that green color combination much better. The other two, I used the lightest color green, and then one of the mid-tones. For the one that I stamped, I started with a mid-tone and then used a little bit darker color, and I did like that color combination better. All in all, they stamped really nicely. For one of my sentiments, I am using this large, it's actually called a mega blessed die, and I cut 2 of them out of white and 1 of them out of navy, and then I cut out all my flowers. I thought that I was going to use my flowers on my blessed card, but I didn't end up doing that. So here, this is the one. I've never used this stamp before. It's brand new right out of the package, and it's not seasoned at all. I'm going in with my Indigo Skies. This is the darkest blue in the blue collection. And you can see I stamped it down once. I got relatively good coverage, but it's not perfect. I actually ended up stamping this 3 times. Now, I don't know how it would have done had I seasoned it. I have a feeling it would have gone much better, but like I said, I didn't do that. But I don't want you to be misled, because other people who season their stamps may be able to get a good impression on one go, but I did not. Here, I put the stamp cleaner down and then I just wiped it off with a baby wipe, and it didn't stain it at all, even though it's like a completely solid stamp. You can see it's still clear, it's clean. I was super impressed by that. Here, I decided I didn't like the roses. I ditched those. I thought maybe I would use the leaves. It was still too busy for this little lady, so I ended up ditching those as well. I stacked my 2 white ones together and then stacked the navy one on top of that. I decided that I wanted this one to have a little bit of a border, but I am too frugal. I was going to say cheap chicken strikes again. I am too frugal to waste an entire piece of navy blue cardstock, and so because I only needed the edges, I literally just used the one that I die cut out of. Once I put this on my card base, nobody will be any the wiser that that portion is missing out of the middle, and it will save me in having to cut an entire new piece of cardstock. And so I'm okay with that. Save your dollars. I'm a big fan of that. So here, I'm just adding some adhesive. I'm going to stack up these 2. This is just to give since it's the only thing on there, like I'm only putting the sentiment on there, which I think is fine. I think the card, like the 2 different patterns we have going on, is super pretty, and I think it's enough to carry it with just a large die cut. But I wanted to give it a little bit of weight, and so that is why I chose to stack it. And then I'm just going to adhere this into the center of the card. Yeah, so we talked about the affiliates, which I will, like I said, I will link below. And for the rest of this week, honestly, any of the videos that I share, I will probably post. And if it's convenient, I could also post it in the community page. Just because I know that it can be difficult to hunt them down, and I appreciate you taking the time to specifically use my link, so I want to make it as easy as possible for you. And then, yeah, please let me know about the thumb. I need to know about the thumbnail. I need to know if that is my issue, or if it's my content. Like I said, I'm a big girl. I can totally take it. Or, you know, maybe people just had things going on at the end of last week that they weren't watching videos, which is also fine. Everybody has lives. So for this one, I'm I adhered the leaves to the rose with just a little bit of liquid glue, and then I'm going to go in with this foam tape. This is also from Altenew. It's a nice kind of flexible foam. It's a little bit thinner. And then I'm going to put this down. We talked about the rule of thirds recently, down in like the bottom right, and then I'm going to add the sentiment coming right off of there. I did have to put foam on the left-hand side and glue on the right just so it would be flush, but that was not a problem. That's pretty typical for me when I pop things up. I like for them to be all nice and flush with each other on the top layer. So yeah, those are pretty, oh, I did add sparkle. I did add the sparkle because you guys know how I feel about that. And I could have trimmed this one down and done a matte on it too, but I really didn't, I didn't think it needed it. So I hope that you learned a little something about these new inks. I hope that you learned a little bit something about combining your stamps and your stencils for a fun layered look to kind of stretch your supplies. And I hope that you will head over and check out those blog posts because you could win, and winning is always fun. So thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate you, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.